As I mentioned before, General Grynkewich made his way to Poland for a series of high-profile meetings, including Polish Foreign Minister Sikorski and Polish Prime Minister Tusk. At the same time, Poland signed a landmark deal with the U.S. as part of the foreign military financing program. Could this be a clear signal of a tangible threat of Russia going even further in its expansionist tendencies? Also, where does the U.S. stand on recent moves by Volodymyr Zelensky to influence the anti-corruption institutions in Ukraine? To discuss all this and more, Kurt Volker, former U.S. Special Representative for Ukraine negotiations, joins me now. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on the show.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, General Grynkewich, Commander-in-Chief of the European NATO forces, met with Donald Tusk and Radosław Sikorski. As we look at this meeting, why is it significant for the security of the region, considering the general's position within NATO?
Well, first off, he's the newly appointed SACEUR. So this is now the Trump administration leaning in to support NATO and to use NATO. You just think back a few months before the NATO summit, there were a lot of questions about President Trump's commitment to NATO. But it was a very positive NATO summit. He said he's changed his view about NATO. He has put NATO now in a role of coordinating the delivery of some assistance to Ukraine, something that had never been done in the Biden administration. And President Trump has always had a favorable for Poland, which is spending a lot on defense. And he's now using the general, using NATO, using American resources to lean in to reinforce and reward Poland for its commitment on European security. So all in all, very, very positive moves.
I would like to go back to what you said just a second ago. We know that General Grynkewich was to meet the American military personnel in Poland. Considering the American involvement and considering how President Trump changed his narrative and changed his point of view on both Vladimir Putin and Russia and its recent behavior, do you think that there's any chance at any point that not only the financial support is going to be granted to Poland, but we're going to see more military personnel from the States coming over to Poland?
Well, in terms of military personnel, I'm not sure. I think the Pentagon is looking at actually trying to figure out how it can reduce the U.S. footprint in Europe generally. But that might also involve some rebalancing, where you may have more people in Poland and the Baltic states and fewer in Germany or in the West. But that is something the Pentagon is still looking at. As for military support for Ukraine and for Poland, I think that is going to continue. And it's going to be more in the equipment side and the financing side, whether through loans to Ukraine or purchases of material for Ukraine that Germany or the Netherlands or Norway can do. So in terms of American troop presence, I wouldn't want to overstate that. But the commitment to the American military capability, I think, has been reinforced now under President Trump.
General Grynkewich stated in one of his public appearances only but a few days ago that European Union countries may have more than 18 months to prepare for a possible large-scale military conflict with Russia. China may also be involved on their own front. We also heard from Prime Minister Donald Tusk, who said that after speaking to the general, he reiterated and he backed this same idea. Do you think this is a fair assessment? Or are we to be concerned, or is this just in the realm of a possibility?
I would say the latter. It's in the realm of the possible. We tend to overstate Russian military capabilities. Look at what happened when they launched their full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 22, and then the difficulties that Russia has had since then. It's true that Russia puts a lot of resources into its military in terms of personnel, in terms of equipment. They're ramping up defense production. And so, yes, we have to take that seriously. And we have to make sure that we are not complacent when it comes to having the right kind of defense capabilities in place. But that said, I think Russia is not nearly as capable as they want us to believe. They're having a very difficult time in Ukraine. And it would be foolhardy of Russia to try to attack NATO in the next 18 months. They simply would not have the military capability to prevail at all. And so I don't think it's likely, but it's just something we need to be prepared for just in case.
We spoke about 18 months, but given more time, do you think that Russia is going to be able to actually attack any of the NATO countries?
Yeah, I think if you stretch it out 5 to 10 years, then you could see them building up and reconstituting a more serious military capability. They've really depleted their military right now with the war in Ukraine. But if we have a ceasefire this year and then they spend the time rebuilding, then I'd say in a 5 to 10 year horizon, it's more plausible. And yes, I think that as long as Vladimir Putin is in power, his stated goal is the reconstitution of the Russian Empire. So that includes the Baltic states, Finland, part of Poland. It is a very aggressive, ambitious desire to rebuild that empire. He thinks those are all lost Russian lands that he wants to reacquire. So we have to take that threat seriously.
So Poland signed a $4 billion deal as part of the foreign military financing framework. What would you say this says about the Polish-US relations, cooperation in the field of defense and military?
Yeah, it's two things. One of them, there is a great deal of respect and support for Poland because Poland is doing its own share. Poland spending 4.7% of GDP on defense, hosting American forces, serving as a major launching pad for security in Europe as a whole. Poland is doing a lot of the things that the U.S. would want other NATO countries to do as well. So there's a lot of support for Poland that way. Secondly, what you're seeing with President Trump is a reorientation of the way we use military assistance. It is not just giving things away that taxpayers are paying for, but it is trying to find ways to leverage things financially so that it is a more fair bargain. And in this case, it's a loan guarantee that the U.S. is providing, meaning that Poland is borrowing the money, Poland will pay the money back eventually, but the U.S. is providing a guarantee for that to keep the rate down. This is a win for both sides.
As I mentioned before, I would like to ask you about President Zelensky and his decision that was found to be controversial by many across the globe to influence the anti-corruption institutions in Ukraine. Do you think that this move is going to actually influence the relationship between the U.S. and Ukraine? We already know, and we actually showed this in one of the reports, that President Zelensky is trying to walk it back and he's trying to make amends when it comes to that. But is the damage done?
Well, I don't think it's permanent damage. No, I think it was a foolish decision, tone deaf in terms of what the world cares about. We already see that there is substantial corruption still in Ukraine. It's understandable, perhaps, that in wartime it's a little bit harder to control that. But to then try to centralize the anti-corruption authorities under the office of the president, that is completely the opposite of the type of reform that needs to happen, and got a very strong backlash from the U.S. and from the European Union. And as you say, he's now reversing that. I don't think it's permanent damage, but it is one more indicator for people in Washington or in Brussels that President Zelensky doesn't quite have a handle on how to make sure that Ukraine is succeeding in the Western European model. That is to say, a democracy, market economy, rule of law, human rights, all of the things that Ukraine is going to have to do right to be able to join the European Union. It's still not quite getting that right.
I wanted to move away slightly from the topic of Poland and Ukraine and that situation, because we had a major development. We heard that Mr. Macron recognized Palestine as a state causing an uproar. That's something we've covered here on TVP World as well. What do you think pushed President Macron to announce that this very moment? And do you think there is a chance that, for example, Prime Minister Keir Starmer or Chancellor Merz are going to follow suit?
No, I don't see Germany or UK following suit. Obviously, what Macron was responding to was the absolutely horrific pictures of Palestinians that are coming out from the deprivation, the lack of food, lack of water, constant bombardment, constant security threats. and just emaciated children, starvation, really horrific pictures that we've seen coming out of Gaza. And he was reacting to that to send a signal to Israel that he's not happy. I don't think the recognition of a Palestinian state at this stage will have any on-the-ground impact. It's not going to change anything in reality. It's just an expression of displeasure towards Israel. And as I said, I don't think there's going to be a stampede toward doing that, because it won't have a practical effect. And there are other consequences that will follow if countries were to start recognizing a Palestinian state.
Just before we go, we heard from President Trump, who said, I quote, "Here's the good news. What he says doesn't matter. His statement doesn't carry any weight." Don't you find this response to Mr. Macron's decision a little harsh, especially considering the climate?
Yeah, but it's very typical for President Trump. He just says harsh things like that because it grabs attention, makes Trump the center of attention. All publicity is good publicity as far as Trump is concerned. So, yes, it's harsh that way, but I think people are used to it.
Thank you very much, Kurt Volker, former U.S. Special Representative for Ukraine negotiations. Thank you for joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And so this would be all here on World News Tonight. I'm Klaudia Czerwińska. Thank you very much for joining, and I do hope to see you soon here on TVP World for more news and features.